You're not going to want to miss this episode of the AI Show. We talk all about unlocking AI potential with Foundry Local integration for GitHub Copilot in VS Code. Make sure you tune in. Hello, welcome to this episode of the AI Show. We're talking all about unlocking AI potential with Foundry Local integration for GitHub Copilot in VS Code. My friend Manav, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Seth, I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a PM on the Foundry Local team, and I'm really excited to be here. It's AI Show is amazing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Foundry Local.
So why don't we start with before we get into like the GitHub stuff? Can you give us a little like introduction to Foundry Local, why it's important, and why should people think about it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so local AI has been on top of my mind forever, but I feel like it's probably important for everyone else to understand it. So I brought some slides to kind of talk about that. Local AI can be used in so many different places, but let's talk about why you might want to use it first. So privacy and security is paramount. Whether you be a bank, working with taxes or anything else, a lot of people care about their data a lot. And a lot of these public services are not really privacy and security focused. They're focused on providing you information quickly. So local AI, running your own models, you get to choose what that privacy and security looks like. Latency and low bandwidth is also relevant, but I think that really what that comes down to at the end of the day is just you can run these models offline. That's really, really important because maybe you don't always have access to the internet. I know I've been able to do that a lot when I'm on like a flight or something, and I'm like, great, I want to use LLMs to do things for me, but I can't because I don't have internet. Well, with local AI, I can do that. And then cost efficiency is also really important because these can get expensive. I don't know about you all, but I am subscribed to a couple AI services, and it can be really challenging when you have so many to look at. And I'm sure you've maybe had the same experience.
Yes.
So with the case with local AI, as long as my hardware is good enough, I can run whatever I want for completely free outside of electricity costs.
And then the last one is that the fact that I'm looking at all of these apps that are like, if I want to use an LLM in offline mode, I can see me wanting to do that here. So the question is, how does Foundry Local help?
Yeah, so we provide an interface, a model interface to, or rather an API interface to access this LLM on your device. So we spin up a server for you, and we have a lot of great things going on the back end. Over here, you can see Onyx Runtime is what we're using. And if you're familiar with the open model or the open source model space, you know that we already have that set up for like other models everywhere. And the beauty of it is really that it's cross-platform, but also that it really accelerates all of the things that you're doing in terms of inference. So when it comes to these models, whether it be NVIDIA hardware you have, AMD hardware you have, Intel hardware you have, or Qualcomm hardware you have, whether you're on Windows, Mac OS, it doesn't really matter. We provide really, really good acceleration, and we work with these hardware vendors directly. So using that goodness of Onyx Runtime that's baked into Foundry Local, we ensure that you get some great inference performance. And that's really, really important.
Yeah, and I've played with Foundry Local, and it's really cool. It's almost like you have your own like mini LLM, but running on like an endpoint on your local device, which is super cool. All right, so now let's talk about the GitHub Copilot in VS Code integration. What is this all about? Because now this is, because I think I've heard this. This is the part I have not heard about. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so this is new. I did bring a demo, but before we jump into that, I just want to quickly summarize what's going on. In GitHub Copilot, you can choose models just like everyone else, and that's based on what you like. With Foundry Local, we can bring the models that we want to use with GitHub Copilot, and unlike with the subscription that you typically have to pay, these are completely free because you can run them on your own device. So without further ado, let's just jump into the demo.
All right, let's do that.
Hi, today I'll be covering running local models using AI Toolkit for Visual Studio Code via Foundry Local. So to get started, if you haven't already, install the extension, and you can go ahead by searching for AI Toolkit in the extension store. And go ahead and download that and install it in VS Code. Once you've done that, you're going to have two more prerequisites: GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot Chat. They should install together, and you'll have this little button that kind of shows up. You can go ahead and toggle the chat and open it, and we're going to be in ask mode for this. Then we're going to go ahead and click Manage Models. If it's your first time, it may take a second to load. Go ahead and click Foundry Local via AI Toolkit, and it'll load a set of models that are compatible with your device. Now I'm going to choose the Quen models, and I'm going to choose a 1.5 billion model since I don't have the greatest processor right now. And we'll go ahead and add those. Now in the pane, we should see these. I've already had these installed, but if you don't, it'll prompt you when you click the models to start running them. Now, as expected, we can use them with VS Code and GitHub Copilot chat to answer questions about our code. So I'm going to take a look at this payload, use the CUDA version since I have a CUDA device, and I'll go ahead and ask, tell me about this file. It'll take a second to load the model into memory, and then we should be off to the races. As you can see over here, while it's working, my GPU is loading into memory and it's being used. And we got some information about this file. That's wonderful. Now let's go ahead and look at edit mode and try again. Let's have it make a quick change. Again, it's going to go ahead and using the GPU, it'll make the edit to the temperature, and we can keep that change. Now I've headed back into ASP mode for one last sample. I'm going to have it generate another sample JSON. And we can use this also to write functions similarly, and it'll go ahead and do that. And in this case, it has questions for Tokyo. I hope this was a great intro to using AI Toolkit and Foundry Local to run local models on device. Just as a reminder, they're completely free, and we have models for CPU, GPU, and NPU. So regardless of what device you're using, you can use the power of local models.
That was awesome. Holy
yeah,
cow!
Holy
cow! So let me get to this because I think you had a couple more slides that I want to get to because I want people to understand what's actually going on. So effectively, there is a model running on your box that now, whenever you do GitHub Copilot stuff in VS Code, it's just using that model.
Exactly. So on device, you're not pulling anything else. You're not paying for any credits. It's just your own device.
Now, here's a question, and now maybe you can like lay the cards out. Some of these models are not going to be as good as the bigger models, right? So in your experience, when would you use these models versus the other ones? And what have you sort of been feeling out with the smaller models that are running on local device?
Yeah, I mean, that's an amazing question. I think for me personally, there are certain situations where you do want to use the biggest models, right?
Yep.
When you're doing in-depth research, I know deep research is like a really great use for those large models. Up-to-date information, we will have tool calling support very shortly, but in the meantime, accessing the internet and using tools of that sort, you do want the latest models. But for things that aren't necessarily super large, I think anything that you want quickly done, this is a great example. So whether you're building it into apps, because I think that's the main key use for Foundry Local, you're doing short searches, summarization. Like there's so many great AI things in the GPT-4, for example, era or the GPT-4o era, where we even support GPT-OSS. That's a great example. But these smaller models that can do really, really smart things, we don't need to use the largest model in the world.
I feel you. So you're saying like, hey, if there's regular like standard text things like summarize this so that it's more concise, or things that you would use a tiny model for, you should totally use. So like if you're on the plane and you're editing like your documentation, use the smaller models because those would totally work.
I mean, I'll give you a great example. I was filling out some government documentation, some paperwork, and I was literally on a plane, and I was just like, great, I do not want to write all of this information, but I'll write bullet points for you. Great purpose, right? I just spun up Foundry Local, had a chat window open, and just gave it my bullet points, and it turned it into like a large paragraph for me because I just didn't want to go through the effort of writing.
That is amazing. So there was two more slides because I want people to know how this is working underneath. Tell us about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so it's just a quick demo of what's going on. So Azure AI Foundry is where we actually host all these models, and we're able to pull those in. And then we have the management service that's kind of happening on device, as well as we have Onyx Runtime all the way under the bed, which is based on your hardware, making sure to optimize. We have this all baked into Windows AI Foundry, so I think 24H2 and onwards, we're using whatever execution providers you have, whether it be CUDA, Windows, Vitis for AMD, or Qualcomm as well. So even if you have an NPU on device, we're just kind of solving that whole problem for you. You don't have to figure out, what drivers to install, which packages to install. Once you have Foundry Local installed, you're just kind of good to go. And whether that be through AI Toolkit or that just be locally as a package via Winget or Brew, you're just good to go.
And the cool thing is that, and here's the thing that most people don't know, because I heard about, and I'll bring up the next slides so some people get conscious. Windows ML, I heard about Windows ML like probably 2 or 3 years ago. And so it's a really, really sort of baked in thing to Windows. How does Windows make this better? Tell us about Windows ML.
Yeah, so WinML, I think the GA was very recent, but what that allows us to do is we, just have the acceleration just baked in. I think that's like the simplest way. I don't want to complicate too much, but just it just makes it so easy to deliver the packages that we need, because a lot of them are just going to be on device already now.
Yeah. And the thing that I learned about before, because this was, maybe I shouldn't have said it was years ago, but I saw the internals of this stuff years ago. And I remember the engineers were telling me, you know what's cool about this, Seth? The fact that you can just use the Onyx runtime, and as an operating system, we will choose the hardware that's the best, that's actually sitting in your box. So you don't have to be doing like, because sometimes if I have to write a CUDA thing versus a CPU thing, completely different thing. And now same for the NPU, the Onyx runtime in Windows ML helps you sort of do this without thinking about it.
Exactly. We're just removing that from the users in terms of difficulty. You just don't have to deal with it, and it just works the way that you need to. Actually, if you could pull up that slide really quickly.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
People can understand that there's many different ways to interface with Foundry Local. Whether you use the CLI itself, we have SDK options, and then you can also just call REST API straight to the endpoint that the server spins up for you. So there's a lot of ways to work with this, and we have C++, C Sharp, Python, JavaScript, like whatever you want. And I think even the community's been contributing Rust bindings. So there's lots of options, so you can use this however you want to.
I think I missed this part. So if you don't mind, maybe I can like sort of pull that thread a little bit. There's a Foundry Local Management SDK that allows you to execute these models without having to call an endpoint.
Yeah, so it's it's effectively wrapping that just so it's a little bit easier for you to do. But yeah, whether you want to download models, run off the service, actually spin like do inference, all that is just enabled a little bit easier with the SDK, just so that we're not calling direct endpoints. And then because we make sure to dynamically allocate these ports sometimes for security and safety reasons, we don't have to figure out what that is on the user's device.
I see. So if you're running this on your device, you basically start Foundry Local. It's a service, it's running, and then it loads. It has models that are loaded and unloaded. It depends on the ones that you want. And then if you use the SDK, it just knows how to talk to that natively without you having to specify the endpoint, put in a fake key, because I remember there's no key for this because it's local. You don't have to do any of that stuff.
Exactly. It just makes it that much easier. And so we want this to be really easy to ship with applications, and just being able to do that without having to go through the effort or the harder effort of development just makes that really easy, so that we can just package this with anything that we need to, send it off, and then all of a sudden, your local like applications are just using AI out of the box for free for your users.
Oh, this is amazing. Like just for folks, I have to do a workshop I think coming up in a couple of weeks, and I got to get people to use LLMs and play with them. I could literally just have them all install Foundry Local, and they could be doing it irrespective of what the internet's like in that workshop. This will all still just work.
Exactly.
This is amazing. Where can people go to find out more? I know there's a blog here. Tell us about this.
Yeah, this is a great way to get started. We have the AI Toolkit and GitHub Copilot integration at this blog, so that's a great place to get started. Otherwise, on GitHub, we have Foundry Local, so just go ahead and search that. Or we have Learn Docs as well, whether you want to get started there. But awesome, there's amazing links there, and you can just get started and get going. It really is one-line install, whether you're on Windows or Mac OS, and you can just get off to the races.
This is amazing, Manav. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time, Seth. It was really glad being here.
And thank you so much for watching and learning all about how to unlock AI potential with Foundry Local integration for GitHub Copilot and VS Code++, because we talked about a lot more too with Foundry Local stuff that I did not know about. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Take care.